Samyammati prakaranam, right knowledge. Atmageha paro hyatma syasmya yasmad tanyanna vidyate sarvagya sarvadrish sarvadrik shuddha tasmai yatmane namaha. The self is to be known. It is beyond everything knowable, as there exists nothing except it. I bow down to that pure, all-knowing and omniscient one, which is to be known.
So here we have a salutation verse, the beginning of the chapter. So he bows down. Normally we have verses that say, I bow down to my guru. But here Shankara says, I bow down to that self. So what does it mean to bow as a physical gesture? Is about this complete surrender, this complete letting go, this abandonment of needing to protect, defend self. Now, what is it that we need to know? That self which I am is never known as an object. It is not an experience to be gained. Today I don't have the self. Tomorrow I'm in hopes I will have an experience of the self, as if it's something I don't have now, I'm going to have later. No. Nor is it anything in the world of the knowables, meaning all phenomenal objects in the gross world. Any imagined feeling, thought, image in the subtle world. What is it? It is the eternal subject. What we're looking for, we are looking with. It is closer than hand or foot. It is closer than your breath. It is closer than your most secret innermost thoughts. It's our very experience of I. Now the great cosmic joke is it's always been there. But because of spiritual ignorance, I superimpose upon that, in my mind, sorts of nonsense. So it's the ignorance and its subsequent projections that need to be removed. It's not then we engage and now I've gotten rid of all the dross. Now I need to find the self. No. Just like you don't need to remove anything before you turn the light switch on. I'm sorry, the light switch didn't work. I forgot to turn off the darkness switch. Remove the impediments. More than impediments, remove the distractions. That's really what it's supposed to be. All right, next verse.
पदवाक्य प्रमाणके दिव्यभूते प्रकाशितं ब्रह्म वेदरहस्यं ये स्थानित्यं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्. I always bow down to those teachers who are conversant with words, sentences, and sources of knowledge, and who, like lamps, have shown clearly to us Brahman, the secret of the Vedas.
So, in Shankara's wonderful text, Vivekachudamani, which we start tomorrow, there's a very famous section, the qualifications of a fit student. And it's followed by a very short section about what to look for in the fit teacher. And as is frequently the case, there's a list of qualities. Usually, when we have a list of qualities in Scripture, they're listed what's most important is first, and then what follows. So in this list, the first one is Shrotriya, which means well versed in the scriptures. Why? The scriptures give the teacher an understanding of the tools, the pedagogical techniques of being able to take a mind in ignorance and bring it into knowledge. Now, the teacher should also be a full knower of the Supreme and have retired into the Supreme. There are many, many teachers who are women and men of wisdom, but they themselves don't have enlightened disciples. Swamiji was a master. And in the 40 years plus of his teaching, so many of his students, women and in realization, and many teachers. He was a great teacher of teachers, true Sadguru. So here Shankara says, I bow down to those teachers who not only are women and men of wisdom, but who effectively wield powerful pramana, this means of knowledge, which we find in the scriptures. India's great cultural gift to humanity is the systemization, the technology of spiritual experience, of mystical experience. Other parts of the world, there are mystics, but usually it's by grace, by inspiration. There's no systemization of it. This is India's great, great cultural gift to the world. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Yat surya shusampata pranashtathanantakalpashaha pranamya Tan Gurun Bhakshe Brahma Vidya Vinishchayam. I bow down to my teacher, whose words fell into my ears and destroyed ignorance in me, like the sun's rays falling on darkness and destroying it. I shall now state the reasoning leading to the right conclusion about the knowledge of Brahman.
Beautiful poetry. The words of the teacher fell into his ears. This is Brahma Vidya, knowledge of the sun. And so, what he's referring to here is what we call a Shabda Pramana. Shabda means sound or words. Doesn't mean the guru makes this mystic sound, and all of a sudden you get enlightened. It doesn't mean that. It means by working the Vedanta, working the knowledge, turn the student's mind back upon its source. That moves them into the direct experience of their self-nature. Tell them what they're experiencing while they're experiencing. So Gita in the 7th chapter calls this Jnanam Vijnanam Cha. Understanding and realization. Other scriptures will use the terms Paroksha Jnanam and Aparoksha Jnanam. Indirect knowledge and direct experience. We need both. So this is the means of knowledge of the Vedanta. So you need a student whose mind is purified to some degree, who's open and surrendered. You need a teacher himself rooted in this knowledge, who's retired into the supreme. And then the scripture becomes a setu, a bridge, by which transmission takes place. Now it's interesting. Many times I'll see a video or a photograph of a satsang, and you'll see students who are in a worshipful attitude towards the guru. And when they leave, they say, "Oh, Guruji is so wonderful. They are so powerful. They, or him, her. When I was with Chinmaya, over and over again, he would turn our minds back upon the self. He would disappear. The students were then lost in the vision. Oh, Supreme Self. Say the Guru is a temporary psychological device. So here Shankara is saying, all the various gurus who were masters at wielding the means of knowledge. How do we know it? Because as the result, I know who I am. I have no doubts about who I So how do we know the efficacy of a teacher? Not by the number of books they've written, but do they have students that themselves do things? Next verse.
Atmalabhat paro nanyo labha kaschana vidyate yadartha vedavadascha smartar smartashchapi tuyah kriya. There is no other attainment higher than that of the self. For that is the purpose for which the teachings of the Vedas, the Smritis, and the actions described in the work portion of the Vedas are there.
So we have what we call the Karma Kanda, the action portion of the Vedas. Basically, these comprise hymns and rituals, things that the spiritual person is enjoined to do. But they always point toward the Upanishads. Upanishad, to sit down near. This is the Veda Anta, the end, the concluding portion of the Vedas, which is knowledge of the self. So here what Shankara is pointing at is something even deeper. What is the purpose of a human life? Even more, what is the dharma of a human being? Dharma here meaning the nature of something, the essence, without which it would not be what it is. The dharma of a human being is self-knowledge. This can be interpreted in two ways. First, what is the ultimate essence of you? Uttama Purusha, ultimate essence of personness, Purushottama. That's my direct experience of I, which is self-evident, self-shining. But this idea of the dharma of the human being means self-knowledge, self-realization, also means that's what we're doing all the time. It's a very important point. How does this dharma manifest itself, your life and my life? What the human mind does is seek the good and avoid misery. From the moment we get up in the morning to the moment our head hits the pillow, that's all we do. Even if I do something that's self-sacrificing, it's for ultimately a good. What about people who cut themselves and stuff like that, Jim? Why do they do it? Because it's a way to get away from a greater pain, still seeking the good. It's not by a very efficient means. It's what the human mind is always doing, just like plants that turn towards the sun. That's the Dharma. Krishna says, everybody is always seeking me. They just don't know it. And by the wrong means. Whatever it is that's the driver, the motivator of your life. I think this is what's going to make me happy. This is what's going to make me safe. This is what's going to bring me peace. I'm really seeking expression. Just don't know it. And we go through experience after experience for many lives to finally come to the point through our evolution. Maybe it's God that I seek. Maybe I do have a God-shaped hole in my heart. That's what will bring me peace. And ultimately we find out the God I seek is ultimately my own nature. How strange. Lifetimes looking, seeking. And I had it all wrong. So there's a practice that's implied here. Get up in the morning and you feel lonely. Try this. Okay? My mind is telling me I want connection, I want company. What I really want is Krishna. I really want this self. You're angry. Something didn't go right in your life. Stop for a moment. Okay. My mind is saying if this person behaved or if the situation were that way, that would make me be at peace. No, what I really want is Krishna. Oh, I'm so upset about politics. What's going to happen? We're doomed. Global warming, we're doomed. No. You're always secure. What you seek is Krishna. Once you go through this process, then endeavor to let go, at least for a moment, of the struggle of ego. Instead, with the mind. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Atma Atmarthopi Hiyo Labha Sukha Yeshto Viparyaha Atma Labha Para Prokto Nityatvad Tadma Vedibhihi. The acquisition on the part of oneself, considered to be a source of happiness, produces the opposite result also. It is for this reason that the knowers of Brahman say that the greatest acquisition is that of the self, as it is eternal.
So, what Shankara is talking about here is the problem that happens when I believe that Ananda, bliss, Sukham, happiness, is outside. So let's review the technology of worldly happiness. What is it that has happiness as its swabhava, its nature, its dharma, its essence? What do I mean by that? Everybody experiences wetness and water. That's its dharma. Everybody experiences sweetness and sugar. That's its dharma. Everybody experiences heat and fire. That's its dharma. But people do not experience happiness from the same objects or the same people or the same situations. It varies from person to person. Yet, when I get what I want, for a moment I'm happy. So, what is going on? Literally, I make up what I think will make me happy based on the force of the past. I think it all belongs to me. I think this person is going to make me happy. Or more subtly, when I think that person behaves the way I want them to, then I'll be happy. So I determine what's dear to me. Then I engage in the struggle. I buy it, I marry it, I control it, or I beat it up, bludgeon it into submission. Whatever I need to do. The object becomes, I endeavor to make it proximate, to get near to it. Require. That's called moda. Then when desire and object you desire become one. Pramoda. The point of pleasure. In my ignorance, I think the object has inherent joy-giving properties. In that mental state, I develop attachment to it. I want it to stay the way it is, and I don't want to lose it. Don't want it to change. The end result of that is inevitably, if I am attached to the joy that I experience through objects of the world, I will suffer. Because the world is always changing. And the objects, emotions, situations, etc., are transient, they're temporary, impermanent. And my mind is changing. And the most frustrating is the law of diminishing return. I fill up the candy jar. A student comes in and has one chocolate, so good. And they have two, they have three. If one chocolate were satisfying, Why are you having more? And then if you eat halfway down the jar, you feel sick to your stomach. All diminishing return, which makes us greedier, more desperate. One of the funniest things that Swamiji used to say, if sex were satisfying, we'd only do it once. So, as Nisargadatta Maharaj says, worldly pleasure and worldly suffering are the same thing. It's like the heads and tails of a coin. If you take the coin, it will have both sides. Likewise, if I look to the world to give me satisfaction, I will get a little satisfaction. I will also get suffering. I remember working with a student several years ago. We were talking about love. This person he was so attracted to literally said this, I know it's love, Jim, because it hurts so bad. Love doesn't hurt. Attachment hurts. And again, such is the power of the Lord's Maya. Even hearing this 1,000 times, I still want to control other people. I still want to control my life. I still want to grab onto the world. It's so simple. I either take a bouquet of flowers, give me what I want. And if that doesn't work, I get out the baseball bat. Give me what I want. And when that doesn't work, I get the flowers out again. Give me what I want. I'm engaged in kartavya, literally obligatory action. What it means is I work. The way Shakespeare says it, I grunt and sweat under a weary life. For what? 95 cents worth of work for a nickel's worth of pleasure. And then it's gone. And I'm stuck wanting. Now, hearing this, hearing it over and over again, we begin to develop the desire to be free from desire. To age. This is auspicious desire. Unfortunately, we can't turn it off like a light switch. What do? We turn the mind away from the chaos of the sense objects. Puna punaha. again and again through a steady observation of their defects. I don't mean that we say, oh, I don't want that car because the fender is bent. Or I'm not attracted to that person really because their nose is too big. We don't, that's not what it means. It means we think through the addictive relationship with the objects of the world and the endpoint. If I get attached, I'm going to suffer. Choose. So, Shankara says, be woke. Pay attention. Practically speaking, as we move through the world, pay attention to our suffering. Ignorance will say, I'm upset because I'm not getting what I want. Yoga says, I'm upset because I'm wanting. Stuck in that spiritual hangover, result of yesterday's indiscriminate revelry with the objects of the senses. Mudha, fool, there I am. Again. If we really pay attention, it's so repetitive. It's boring. How many times do I say this? Who got upset this week? Tell me this is the first time you felt it. Same dynamic. Maybe the names and faces have changed, but the situation, once again. Then, pay attention to and own your ananda. When desire and object of desire become one, what's really happened is momentarily the mind has been freed from its Viksheka Shakti, its protecting power. Come home. The bliss is not in the object, the person, the situation. The bliss is me. Shankara says, Chidananda Rupaham. My nature is bliss consciousness. You mean ice cream, sex, beautiful music, and a sunset all do the same thing to my mind? Yeah. It varies in intensity and duration. That's all. Depending on how badly I wanted the object and how completely it met my internal program. But I get confused by the diversity of sensory experience. But if you watch your mind, bliss is bliss, happiness is happiness. I just use the objects to get there. Pay attention to our suffering. Pay attention to our own That's 90% of the issue. If I'm just conscious of what's going on. then mature vairagya happens naturally. With mature vairagya, abides in the self becomes easy. Without it, many students get here, tune up with each other, they get dissed out, they get high, get the glimpse of the infinite. But Swamiji used to say they leave the Vedanta on their chair. They go home and I want, I control, I need. It's all serious business. Don't believe me. When we're in that state, what's the end result? Kama, karma, krodha. Kama, craving, impels me into obligatory action, karma. It doesn't work out, or if it works out, it's all temporary. What's the end result? What's krodha? Anger. What is the definition of anger in yoga? Thwarted desire, unmet expectation. Nobody has the power to make me angry. Nobody. I'm angry because I didn't get what I wanted. Fool plays whack-a-mole with the world, not understanding. My problem is, I think getting what I want is a solution. And Yogi says, how's that working out for you? Yoga says, find a real solution. What's the real solution? Let it go. F them. Come home. Nothing, no one in this world is important enough for us to lose our peace of mind. Now, this is beginner's yoga and the most advanced. That process never changes. Such is the power of mind. It's difficult. I'm not making this up. This is my direct experience. It's also exactly what the teaching says. You and I have to prove or disprove this. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Swayam labdhasvabhavatva labhastasya na chanyataha anyapekshastu yo labha sonya drishti samudbhava. Of the nature of being always attained, the self does not depend on anything else in order to be acquired. The acquisition that depends on other things, example, effort, etc., is due to ignorance, and so vanishes when the means to which it is due vanish.
Yes. So, what is the problem with getting my happiness through the world? Here, Shankara says it's dependent on effort. I have to work for it. And it's always temporary. But the bliss of the self, the good news is wherever you go, there you are. And to experience the bliss of the self, for the mind to get yoked to the self, only entails letting go. It's the giving up of ambition, of struggle, of striving, of craving. Lyrics of that old Beatles song. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom. What does she say? Let it be. Back to what I said at the beginning of this chapter. What I'm looking for, I'm looking with. I think it's this object, this person, this job, this behavior from another person, this political situation, gaining 20 pounds, losing 20 pounds. No. The beauty of the self is it's perfect, just as it is. No work for happiness is required. All that's required is let go. Let go. Any thoughts on this? Experiment with this. Try in the midst of some difficult situation. You could always take up the struggle again if you wish. But try for 5 or 10 minutes. Give it all the cosmic middle finger. Let it go. Let it be. Next verse.
Anya drishtistava vidya syat nasho moksha uchyate jnaneneva tusopi syat. virodhitva karmana. The conception of the existence of the non-self is what is called ignorance, the destruction of which is known to be liberation. This destruction is possible by means of knowledge only, which is incompatible with ignorance. Compatible with ignorance, actions cannot destroy it.
So, my problem is avidya, ignorance. The antidote to ignorance is knowledge. Yet, the scriptures enjoin us to take on various actions. It says, do karma yoga, act in the world selflessly. It says, bhakti alone is supreme. Love the Lord thy God. Worship, worship, worship. It says, take sacred baths. If you bathe in Holy Mother Ganga, you will purify your sins. It says, go on pilgrimages to various temples, tirtha. Do this puja, this ritual. This will purify you. Is Shankara saying all this is useless? Is it superstition? What's the relationship between action and knowledge? This is a secret. The scriptures have a karma kanda, an action portion, which has as its purpose the purification of the mind. Investigation into my self nature is only efficacious in a subtle and pure mind. Many scriptures will end up saying this, just hearing this or reading this scripture once will immediately free you. And if it doesn't, you've got a mind like a brick. You have the intelligence of an ass or donkey. They make fun of us. But the truth is, it's because our mind is too loose. So the secret is these are to be done sequentially. In my basic course, the Art of Meditation, I'll use the example of slicing a big ripe tomato. If you have a dull knife and you try to slice the tomato, it goes squish. So there's a preparatory practice called knife sharpening. Knife sharpening, as much as you do it, will not slice the tomato. First, you sharpen the knife, then you slice the tomato. So the wonder sword of knowledge must have a very sharp blade. We sharpen it by becoming adhikari, if it's viveka, vairagya, samadhi guna, mumukshuttva, your actions. Then, by somewhat cool, we engage in atma vichara. Shankara says, vicharena, instrumental case, by means of investigation, is knowledge. My problem is not that I'm a crummy, terrible person with so many defects of character and I need to be fixed. I need to go from miserable Jim into bigger, better Jim. No. My problem is I think I'm a person. I think I'm my body. Body plus the person. Swamiji used to say, shut up and get out. Get up, I want to leave the satsang hall. No. Stop all this stupid Jim. Oscillation and rumination in the mind. Get out. Koham, who are you? The way to heal the mind is to get out of the mind. Naturally so. How do I get out? Discrimination in the self. The subject and all objective phenomena. I mean, the real nitya. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Karma nitya sad vidya kama karanaha pramanam veda evatra jnanasyadhigame smitaha. That actions produced by desires caused by ignorance give rise to results which are perishable, and that knowledge produces an imperishable result, are known on the evidence of the Vedas.
Yes. So the scriptures themselves say, no one attains liberation by means of artha, wealth. In that saying, actions produce results, artha, wealth, which is always impermanent. I have a dear friend who was working for several years for Snowflake. A couple of years ago, they IPO. Overnight, he becomes a millionaire. $10 million. He sold his stock. That's his invested. Well, then he had to pay the taxes, so went from 10 million down to 6 million. Now he's bought some property, so it's now down to 4 million. It's going pretty fast. Oh, $10 million, I'm set for life. Well, depends on how much you spend. His husband says, you spent $250,000 last year. What? Stop. Oh, finally, I'm married. It's all going to be good now. Ask anybody who's been married for a while. I love the story of the couple who've been married 60 years at my old church job. And Father Mark asked them, have you ever thought of divorce? And the wife said, divorce? No. Murder, yes. Work. Nothing in this world. Nothing stays the same. It's just different, that's all. But you are not the product of work. Knowledge of the self, once having gained, it's not known. Because it's not dependent. Ramana Maharshi says, just as for the ordinary person, they wake up in the morning and there's no doubt. They do not wonder whether or not they're a goat or a horse or a pig or a cow. Effortlessly, they know they're a human being. So also, the knowledge of the self dawns on them. You no longer think you're a person. There's no longer any need to practice. There is no more knowledge to be gained by continued practice. Oh, Jim, what I've discovered about the spiritual life, it's not about the destination, it's the journey. No. It is possible to know yourself and to have all your strivings cease. Well, I just never do anything. Don't worry about it. The body, which itself, nothing more than the force of past actions, will continue its prana. But for the person of wisdom, just like you or I, we have no concern for our shadow. It's just there. At noon, it's little. At 4 in the afternoon, it's long. Don't care. Oh, my shadow's in the gutter. So, all right, one more.
Jnane kartha paratvatam vakyamekam tato viduhu ekatvam hyatmano gyeyam vakyartha pratipattitaha. The learned know the Vedas to be one continuous whole, the only purpose of which is to demonstrate one thing, specifically knowledge inasmuch as the oneness of the self is to be known by the understanding of the Vedic sentences.
So here he's dealing with the doubt again, then why the karma kanda portions? Why do we have the stories? Why do we have rituals? And the point is, the Vedas deal with every dimension of human life and every level of unfolding. The purpose of it always points to Brahma Vidya, knowledge of Brahman. What is that? I am Atma, Brahma. This knowledge that the self in me is. What about cities? Flying through the air, being able to teleport, to read auras. Nothing. It's like weightlifting. The one good, the one great jewel of the Vedas. Once having acquired, nothing else need be gained, is this knowledge of the self. It is the goal of human life. All right, what verse are we on for next week?
Verse 10.
Blend here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.